Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for the August webcast on media and presentation skills best practices with our very special guest, Annetta Wilson, who is president of Annetta Wilson Media Training and Coaching. You might also know her from her website, speakwithease.com. And if you are a Promise Award recipient for 2022, you'll certainly recognize Annetta from our training and from our preparations for the upcoming Promise Awards celebration. Thanks so much for joining us today. As always, just a couple of quick notes before we get started with today's presentation. A few housekeeping items. We'll run through introductions, get into our conversation, and of course, answer any questions that you have along the way. As a reminder, we are recording this session, and a copy of the presentation and training will be emailed to you so that you can share this session with your colleagues, with your fellow youth club leaders. We would love for you to share this with anyone and everyone who would like to brush up on their media best practices and public speaking skills. We do have live Spanish interpretation available today. If you are in need of interpretation, please send a message to Tony Galveo, who is our program operations coordinator, and he's here on Zoom with us today. You can also send a message to me or to Daniel, anyone of the WFYC staff. We'll make sure that that interpretation is enabled for you. Please keep yourself on mute until the question and answer section. Our speaker today is very interactive and will ask questions, and we encourage you to come off mute when that time happens. But until then, please keep yourself on mute. We would love for you to join us with video though, so it feels more like we're all in the room together learning. And then of course, your best view for taking a look at the presentation today is if you click on view, then speaker view or side-by-side speaker view. So you'll get a nice view of our presenter and also of the slides. Before we get started, we would love to know where all of you are joining us from. So please type your name, location, and organization name into the chat. Welcome, Julie from Wisconsin in the United States. Glenn from WFYC is joining us from Tampa, Florida in the US. Krissa is joining us from Greece today. Welcome. Tony's here with us in Orlando. And then please continue to introduce yourself. If you're just joining us, please type your name, location, and organization name into the chat. We love to know where you're joining us from in the world today. Before we get started, just a few quick notes. First of all, thank you for joining us today for this special webcast on media training and presentation skills. Public speaking is something that can be challenging for all of us. Just this morning, as I was getting ready for the presentation today, I was thinking through all of those little pieces that run through your head before you're about to address an audience. And it can be a little nerve-wracking, but it doesn't have to be. And with the right preparation, with the right skills and the right training, you too can feel confident and share your story with the world. So I'm so pleased to introduce you today and turn the conversation over to Annetta Wilson, who is a very experienced media professional who has years of experience both as a broadcaster, as a coach, and as a trainer, helping people from all around the US and the world become stronger presenters and feel more confident in their speaking skills. So without further ado, I would love to take just a moment to do a quick check-in with you all before I officially turn it over to Annetta and ask you all to type into the chat, what excites you about public speaking? Or what makes you nervous about public speaking? Or both? what excites you and makes you nervous about public speaking. Share just a little bit about your experiences and your thoughts about getting in front of a camera or addressing an audience.
Looks like everybody's good.
I guess nobody gets nervous before public speaking.
I teach it and I still get nervous, and that's very normal.
TJ says, it's exciting to have an opportunity to share information that can help your members. Oh, it looks like everybody's excited for public speaking.
Great, and nervous. Excited and nervous. That's very, very common.
Glenn's excited to share the details and, get the word out, having an opportunity to share the important messages, but always feeling a little bit nervous about it. TJ says sometimes technology doesn't work as planned.
Yes.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay. This is great.
Thank you to everyone who's answering in the chat. I see some folks are excited and nervous at the same time. You're hoping that everything goes as planned. And Annetta will help walk you through today what to do if you are speaking and things don't go quite as planned, and how to handle that so you can move forward with grace and with ease and confidence. So, Annetta, would you like to take it away?
Yes. Hello from wherever you are in the world. I'm so happy to be here with you and support you, and first congratulate you on the hard work that you're doing to make this world a better place and help people rise higher. All of you are heroes to me, and I admire you so much. So thank you for everything that you do. Today is going to be extremely interactive, but that part depends on you, because I'm here to support you in answering any and all questions you have about making presentations. And for those of you who may have to do media interviews, how you get prepared for that. My goal is for you to feel a lot more comfortable and in control by the time we are done. So Abby, thank you for that introduction. I'll just add a little bit to it so you'll know a little bit about my background. I am a journalist by training. I spent over 30 years in the broadcast news industry as a reporter, a producer, television news anchor, talk show host, writer, and a couple of stints in management. So my whole adult career was centered around being a professional communicator. And as you might imagine, I learned a few tricks over the years to make that easier, not just for me, but for other people. And when I decided to leave television, I went back and got my certification as a coach and a trainer to learn how to teach what I innately knew. And that is my joy, to help people who are doing wonderful things in the world get their messages out there in a way that is clear, compelling, concise, and repeatable. So we're going to have a crash course today, if you will, on communication skills as it relates to making presentations and dealing with the media. Thank you for turning on your camera, because 80% of success is showing up. And when we're in a virtual platform like this, showing up means letting everyone see you. So it would be no different than when we're in a room together. So the first thing that I want to talk about is why you will not see me use slides today. TJ, you put in the chat that your concern was technology wouldn't go as planned. It rarely does. And we rely so heavily on technology that sometimes we forget about the people in the room, even a virtual room like this. And I want you to notice what I'm doing now. I'm not looking at the squares on the screen. I'm looking in the camera, which gives you the feeling that I'm making eye contact with you. So whenever you're presenting in a virtual format like this, look at the camera, not at the squares. You see the difference when I'm looking down at the squares? You don't get the feeling that I'm connecting with you. Now you do, because I'm looking at the camera. It may be a little awkward because we want to see everybody that's here, but they don't get the feeling that you're connecting with them. So that's number one. When you're in a virtual environment, look at the camera, not at the squares. If you have a slide that you're using, put the slide up, talk about it, and then take it back down. Because you don't want your audience to have to choose between reading and looking at you, reading and listening to you, because they'll get half of everything, half of the information on the slide, and then half of what you say. And you've spent all this time preparing all this information. You want people to be able to see you and hear you. Do those things make sense? Also, check your technology before you start your presentation. That's what we did today. We came in a few minutes early to make sure the camera was working, to make sure everyone's microphone was working. You don't want to be surprised when you start your presentation. However, if that happens and your technology fails, keep going. Your audience will take its cue from you. You should not be surprised or get flustered when a slide doesn't pop up or your camera stops working. As long as they can hear you, keep going. And make what happened a part of your presentation. You could say something like, sometimes things just don't work out. We have that in all of our organizations. So what do we do when one thing doesn't work? We do the next thing, just like I'm doing today. You can't see me, but you can hear me, so we're still communicating. Does that make sense? Don't let anything take you out of the game when at all possible. So during the time that we're together, when you have questions, please type them into the chat, because I want to interact with you. I want to make sure that what I'm giving you is what you need, that you leave our time together being able to be, do, or have something that you couldn't be, do, or have before we started this morning. So I'm here to serve you, which is rule number 2 when you're presenting. When you're speaking, it's not about you. It's about the audience. A lot of times what causes nerves is when we're thinking about what they are thinking about us. Am I going to mess up? Will they think I know what I'm talking about? What if I lose my place? What if everybody can see the sweat popping out on my forehead? What if my voice trails off? What if I forget? They don't know any of that because they don't have your script. So if they don't know what you were supposed to say, how are they going to know when you mess it up? Unless you tell them. Have you seen people do that? They lose their place and they go, just a minute. Excuse me, I lost my place. Nobody knew. So don't advertise it. If you make a mistake, just keep going. The same way you would in a conversation. When we're having a conversation with someone, we don't script it out. We don't give them a script and say, okay, I'm going to say this, and then you say this, and then the next line on the page is yours, and then I'm going to say this. We don't do that. We flow with what's happening. Presenting is the same way. It's just a one-way conversation. And always make it about your audience. The audience is the star. The audience is who you should focus on. The audience is who you're there to serve. It's very much like the work you do in the world. When you're doing your thing, when you're helping other people, when you're moving an agenda forward that's going to make lives better, Are you worried about what people think about you? Or are you just doing your thing? You're just doing your thing. It's the same way when you're presenting, except it's a lot more efficient. Instead of having all these little one-on-one conversations, you got everybody in the same place. You only have to say it one time, then you're done. So it's really a more efficient way of getting your message out. Is this making sense? If it is, let me see some hands. Okay. That's another way, because every time I do something today, I'm going to stop and tell you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So what I just did was something in the speaking world called commanding a response. When you ask someone to do something to keep them engaged, I ask you to raise your hand or use the hand icon. That keeps people engaged because they never know when you're going to ask them to do something. So they have to kind of pay attention rather than, you know, checking their email while you're talking and looking up every now and then. Or, you know what you do. We've all done it. We've all done it. So don't pretend you don't do it. So whenever you want to keep your audience engaged, break up there. My you thought I planned that, didn't you? Let's just pretend I did. Let's pretend let's pretend I did that on purpose. So that's what happens sometimes. You just keep it moving. Any questions so far? If you have a question, please put it. Still hear me?
Annetta,
If
can you
you
hear
could
me?
still hear me, yes.
Okay, yeah, you were breaking up for the last about minute or so. Do you want to repeat the last minute
Sure.
and seconds or so?
So what I'm asking you to do, if you can hear me, let me see a thumbs up.
Annetta, I think your audio is having too much trouble with the bandwidth. Would you mind disabling your video and trying to see if we can still hear you?
Okay. I'm checking my internet to see how stable my signal is and how much juice I have. And it looks like it's a little bit unstable. Can everyone hear me now? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, so real quick, I'll say it real fast before it jumps out again. You see what I just did? Don't let anything happen to you. Hear me?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your patience while we're working through some of the technical difficulties. We'll be right back with you.
If this doesn't work today, okay. If this doesn't work today, we'll schedule it again because I want you all to get this. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna try to log out on computer and just do this on my phone.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Abby, can you
Yes.
hear me?
I can hear you.
Can everyone else hear me? Because I can't see you right now.
Can everybody nod or thumbs up if you can hear okay? Yeah, it looks like we are good. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Fantastic. So I'm logging off on my computer and we'll just do this by phone. So I wish I could tell you I planned this today to show you how it's supposed to work, but I didn't. So Abby, I may need your help if there are any questions that come in.
You got it.
But right now, what I'm going to talk to you about is how to put a presentation together. Often the most frustrating part about presentations is creating content. How do I know what to say? How much do I put in? So my rule of thumb is you're only going to make 3 points during any presentation. So think about it this way. If people could only hear 3 things from you about your topic, can you see me now? Okay. If people, it looks like I got a plant growing out of the back of my head. If people can only hear 3 things from you for the rest of their lives about your topic, what 3 things do they absolutely have to know? And you can only tell them 3 things. So that's how you make sure you edit yourself so that you don't put information in there that may be interesting, but not important. 3 things, and assume.
Recording stop. Recording in progress.
Okay, assume no one will ever hear another word from you about this topic for the rest of their lives. And if that's true, what are the top 3 things they need to know? Well, you may say, but Annetta, I've got 103. Yes, you do. But no one can absorb that much information at one time. People can remember 3 things. It's like, I'm going to the store to get eggs, bread, and milk. I don't need to make a list for that. I can tell you exactly what I'm going to get. But if there are 10 things on the list and I didn't write it down, I might forget something. So don't give people any more than their brain can absorb. We can always remember 3 pieces of data. So how do you come up with content for presentations? I have 3 methods that I want to share with you. Number 1, you do a process called mind mapping, and you can Google that. It's basically you sitting down and just writing out every idea that comes to you about your topic. There are computer programs that will help you mind map. And it looks like circles with other circles coming off of it. So if we were talking about how to start a youth organization in your area, that's your topic. You would write down everything that you can think of, everything that comes to your mind about that topic. You know, where do you get funding? Do you get a board of directors? What's the age of the youth you want to serve? Will there be special projects? What kinds of projects? It's just you thinking out loud, and you write down as many as you can. Use a timer. Usually 5 minutes is good. By the time you get through with the obvious stuff, then it's going to get interesting. So that's one method, mind mapping. The next method is what I call the question exercise. And this is where you are going to get a couple of people who are going to just listen to you think out loud. Now that sounds weird, but it looks like this. You're in a room, you're sitting, you just say, look, I'm just going to talk out loud about my ideas about this topic. And I don't want you to say anything, but I want you to write down what you think I'm missing. So if I were talking to someone about making presentations, I would have a couple of people sitting and I would say, do I teach them about the kinds of presentations there are, how to create content, how to move on a stage, all the things that I know about presentation skills. However, there may be something that I didn't mention that the people who are listening thought up. And that's what they're going to write down. So at the end of my thinking out loud, and you can do this for about 90 seconds, they're going to share with you what they wrote down, because that may be where your blind spots are. The third way of creating content, you're going to use a simple little sticky note, Post-it note. And you're just going to write down ideas, one idea per sticky note. And you're going to put them on a wall, a mirror, a door, wherever it is that you're brainstorming. You're going to put as many ideas up there as you can, but only one per sticky note. Everybody with me? If you're with me, raise thumbs up. Okay. Then do that for maybe 5 minutes. Then walk away for 24 hours. Because your brain can only process so much. Come back in 24 hours, and then what you're going to do is group the things together that make sense. So if we were talking about baking a cake, I might have a sticky note that says flour, one that says eggs, one that says sugar, one that says vanilla. Then I might have sticky notes that say pound cake, chocolate cake. Now everybody wants cake right now, right? Chocolate cake, shortcake, pineapple upside down cake. Then I might have one that says measuring cups, measuring spoons. So if I go back 24 hours later, it's going to be pretty obvious that the flour, the eggs, the sugar, vanilla, those are ingredients for a cake. Then the pineapple upside down cake, the chocolate cake, etc., are the kinds of cakes. And then the measuring cups and the measuring spoons go together, because that's how I know how much of each of the ingredients to use. Does that make sense? Okay, because I can't see you. I'm looking at Abby, and Abby will tell me if you have a thumbs up. So those are 3 ways for you to create content, because the one thing that people get nervous about, I don't know what to say. Well, those three ways give you a head start on what to say. And depending on the environment you're in, use one or the other. So you've got the sticky note process, you've got the question exercise, and you've got mind mapping. But with all of those, you're looking at 3 different categories. Well, what if you have more than 3 things? Well, here's where you can leave them a handout. You can send people a link to go to. You can do a part 2. You can write a special report. There are multiple ways for you to get additional information into people's hands. That's limited only by your imagination. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the kinds of presentations there are. All presentations are not informative presentations, or just think information-based. There are persuasive presentations, think salespeople, someone who's trying to get you to persuade you to do something. There are inspirational presentations, which may be the area you're in, where after you've talked, people feel good. They feel inspired to go do something. This is where motivational speakers, this is their territory. Faith-based communicators, this is their territory. Then the last one is entertaining, where think performance artists, think dancers, comedians, actors, because they're presenting, but they're entertaining you at the same time. So what you may want to do is look at those and go, I'm more in the information space. I'm just giving people data. This is where teachers and coaches kind of straddle information and inspiration. But you may find that you resonate more with one of these than the other three, and that's fine. But you need to use a little bit of all of them to keep the audience's attention. Any questions so far? Because if you're not getting what you need, then I want to stop and answer your questions. Do we have any questions, Abby?
I don't see any in the chat yet, but feel free to drop any questions in there.
Okay, so we're going to keep it moving. We've talked about content development. We've talked about the kinds of presentations. Let's talk about the communication languages. And this is true no matter what field you're in, no matter whether you're being interviewed, having a conversation with someone. There are 4 communication languages that we all use. They are, number 1, visual. Visual communicators will say things like, let me paint you a picture. Look at this. I want you to see what I'm saying. They're telling you that they process information by looking, by seeing something. Auditory communicators will say, listen up. Are you hearing me? I'm trying to tell you something. They're letting you know they process information by hearing. These are people who would rather do books on tape or audio books than to read. Okay. Then there are people who get wrapped up in the emotion of something. These are the kinesthetic communicators. These are folks who might say, we're all in this together, we're a team, everyone's hearts are united. It's about passion and love and emotion. You're trying to move people to do something. And then the last one, and these are in no particular order, are auditory-digital communicators. Or an easier way to think about these folks are they rely on facts, figures, and data. They don't want you to tell them how good something feels, or they don't care about the visuals, you painting them a picture. They just want to know hard data. How much does it cost? How long is it going to take to do it? How many people do we need? That sort of thing. So if you recognize yourself in those different styles, the important thing to do is to make sure that you are adding the others in any presentation that you do. You have to give people some data. You want to tell them why it matters. You want to have them imagine what things can look like after the problem is solved. And one of the best ways to do that is to tell stories. So I'm giving you a little bit of everything. Stories go past our conscious mind into our subconscious. They help us see a world that doesn't exist yet, or something wonderful that's happened that's possible again. So each of you have amazing stories, success stories about your organizations. Here's where you can tell people about the work you do in terms of how it has impacted and improved and changed someone's life. You can always add stories to a presentation. And with what you do, you absolutely should have stories. Testimonials are also stories. Who have you done this for that is just over the moon excited about you, about your organization, about what they learned, all of this? Then tell that person's story. And it may sound something like this. When John or Jane walked in the door, they didn't know how to help their family. And through the programs or through the classes or through what they learned in our club, they're now able to do this, this, and this. And because of this, they're going to have a better life and be able to do this, this, and this. Stories always hook people emotionally. That's why fairy tales have been around forever. That's why faith-based literature is full of parables and stories, because people use them to create an image in people's minds of what's possible and to inspire them to do greater things. So if no one has any questions about presentation skills, we're going to jump into media training real quick. So are we seeing any questions, Abby?
Not right now, but please feel free to continue to drop questions in the chat, even if it's 5 minutes from now about something that we talked about in the beginning of the session. Ask any and all questions you'd like.
Yeah, because I don't know what's important to you, which is why you have to help me by putting questions in the chat. Okay? This is for you. I want to make sure you get what you need. And I'm going to try to log back in again with my computer. And I won't do it until I see that I'm in. So if it doesn't work, we're going to keep going by phone. So you notice I didn't let anything that happened today with technology stop me from getting and giving you what you need. I want you to do the same thing. I wish I could say I planned it this way. I didn't, but it's an example of how you just kind of drop back and punt. You use whatever happens to get the message across. So now let's talk about these media people.
Annetta?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Julie, actually, we have 2 questions in the chat. We have first question from Julie. Do you have any tips for handling nerves before you get up to present? Once I start, I'm fine, but it's the opening that's tough.
Okay. Yes. Here are a few exercises you can do.
Recording in progress.
Let's see. I think I'm going to join. Hold on. Let me hang up. I think my computer's back. Hold on a second. We're going to pause because I'm having technical difficulties. All right. Uh-oh.
One moment. Lots of technical difficulties today.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. Wow. So, nerves. Here's one thing you can do. Deep breathing. Doctors ask you to breathe deeply before they check your heart because breathing deeply calms you down. So do some deep breathing. You can also stretch, yoga stretches. That calms you down. I find deep breathing is the quickest way to calm myself down. You've seen people do this, they're kind of like, it's kind of like that movie, Bad Boys, when Martin Lawrence goes, woosah. It's kind of that whole concept. It's funny, but there's some science to it too. So deep breathing, stretching helps you calm down, just getting quiet for a few minutes and closing your eyes, because when you close your eyes, it blocks out outside stimuli and helps you calm down. Now, if you need to rev your energy up because you're really nervous, you want to do things, you're nervous, but you're kind of like, oh, wish I didn't have to do this. You're just kind of blah. You want to do things that get your heart rate up, like running in place, shadow boxing, anything that gets the oxygen pumping, gets your heart flowing, doing a few of these, jumping up and down, jumping jacks. So depending on whether you need to bring your energy up or calm yourself down, you're going to do different things. Yawning, believe it or not, helps calm you down. And it's also contagious. So if one of us yawns right now, everybody's going to yawn. So don't do that. So to calm yourself down, stretches, deep breathing, close your eyes, try yawning, do neck stretches, where you just kind of do that. Anything like that calms you down. And to pep yourself up, run in place, jumping jacks, shadow boxing. The idea is to get your heart rate up. So Julie, did that answer your question? Because I can see you now. Great.
We do have a couple of other questions in the chat box. Just real quickly, a comment too from TJ, who says he likes to do a superhero pose before
I love that.
building your confidence. I love it.
Yes, thank you, TJ. And Tim's got some vibes going too. I saw you, Tim. I see you. I see you.
So we do have one more question. I think it's along the same lines of the question we just had, but any tips to help slow down when you're speaking? Sometimes enthusiasm and nerves can get in the way and we talk really fast.
Talking fast is like a runaway train. Once you get started, it's hard to stop it. So what I'd like for you all to practice doing is pretend you're talking to someone for whom the language you speak is not their first language. They understand you, but they need you to say it a little more slowly so they can get it. So if that's where you are in your head, you're going to naturally slow down. And slowing down actually makes you appear more confident. Because think about it, when people are talking fast, what do we assume? We assume they're nervous. But if someone's pace is very measured, like I'm speaking right now, it doesn't sound weird, but it gives my brain a chance to stay ahead of my mouth. So I'm not using verbal graffiti, is what I call it. Those kinds of things. So today I want you to practice speaking twice as slowly as you normally do. This is not my normal speaking pace. My normal speaking pace is about like this, if you and I would be sitting and having a conversation. However, when I'm speaking to a group, I speak more slowly so that every word has a chance to land. Did you hear the difference in what I did? You can do that too. Just pretend you're talking to someone who doesn't quite get your language. They understand it when they hear it, but they need you to say things a little more slowly so it can sink in. And that just comes with practice. Okay, you know how when you get upset with someone and they've danced on your last nerve and you want to make sure they know they've gone too far? What do? I'm only going to say this one time. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just the Black mama in me, but it's very effective. Okay, so go to that place in your head. Just remember, the faster you talk, the more it's like a runaway train or a snowball rolling down a hill. It's just going to get worse. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Imagine you're helping people, which you are, and that you want them to walk out of the room, even if it's a virtual room, feeling like, yes, got what I needed. This is exactly what I was looking for. Start from that place in your head. Time is running out before the key points are covered. That's why, Tim, you're only going to make 3 points. That's why you keep it to 3. And if you have to practice your speech ahead of time with a timer, do that. So here you have 3 points. One way to do it, make 1 point about each of your 3. I'm going to go back to baking a cake. I'm going to tell you about the kind of cake I'm going to make, the ingredients you need, and how long you need to bake it. That's all I'm going to tell you. I can talk about one thing, the kind of cake, chocolate cake, the ingredients. Here's what you need to buy. You're going to bake it at 350 for 30 minutes. I just told you about baking a cake. Now, if I have to spread that out, if my first thing was the kind of cakes and someone says, can you add 5 more minutes to your talk? I'll talk about 2 kinds of cakes. But I'm not adding a 4th category. So that way you can expand or contract your presentation as needed. So just think 3 points in your presentation and 1 thing to say about each of those 3. That's a 10-minute presentation right there. Did that help, Tim? You can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Cool. Okay.
And Annetta, I'm so sorry. We have one more question in the chat box that we haven't had you answer yet. It's
Okay.
from Chrissa, who asks if it is better to start with a story or keep it for the end of your presentation.
You use the story where it makes sense. So if you're making a point and you have a story that goes with that point, put it in wherever it needs to fit in. There's not a formula about where to use a story. I just want you to use a story and make it relevant to whatever point you're making at the time. This, you can create this any way you want. What I'm teaching you are just some foundational principles to help make presentations a little easier for you to do. But you can put it together any way that makes sense. But I want you all to have at least 3 stories ready at all times about what you do. And that shouldn't be hard because you do such amazing things. And stories mean less prep time for your presentation. So there's a dual benefit. And Abby, I know we're running over, but I do want to get in, and I'm going to make this really quick, a little bit about media training. Here are some things that define what makes something newsworthy. You may have watched the news and gone, why is that story on the air? Or why did that make the paper? Or why did that get online? It's because there are some things that determine what makes something newsworthy. The first one is impact. This is simply how many people does this topic affect, which is why stories about the weather, the economy, education, transportation are always, healthcare, they're always going to be big stories because of the sheer numbers of people affected. The second one is timeliness. When did something happen? That makes it a news story. I can stay as long as you want me to stay. Okay. When something happens makes it a news story. For instance, every year in the United States, there's on September 11th, there's going to be a story looking back on September 11, 2001. So when something happens makes it newsworthy. Or did something happen a while ago and we're just finding out about it? That fits the definition of timeliness as well. The next one is proximity. Where did it happen? If there's a 10-car pileup on the 5 in California, it's not really going to make the news in, Dubuque, Iowa, because they don't care. They don't live in LA, right? So where something happens, conflict, duh. Anytime you got an issue and you got people on either side butting heads or acting stupid, it's going to make the news. The next one is prominence. Is this a name we know? Sometimes who or what organization is involved will make something newsworthy. Celebrities know this. That's why they attach themselves to causes that are important to them, because they know the mere fact that they're involved is going to make news. One of the cases that comes to mind in that area was when Angelina Jolie chose to have a double mastectomy because breast cancer ran in her family, and she was in her 40s at the time. Her purpose was to alert women who are in their early 40s and younger than 40 on the importance of getting mammograms. Now, if my next door neighbor, your next door neighbor had done that, no one would have known about it. But she knows because of who she is, that story was going to make headlines. So that's an example of prominence. Currency has a double meaning. It's money, who's going to pay for it, and it's, is this something we're talking about now that's new and different? And then my personal favorite is the bizarre / odd. So an example would be dog bites man. So what? Man bites dog? That's a story. That's different. So is it unusual? Is it quirky? Is it crazy? Is it like, did you see what just happened? Those things fall under the definition of bizarre - odd. So those things that I just mentioned determine what makes something newsworthy. And usually big stories will check more than one of those boxes. It will impact a lot of people. It's timely, there's conflict involved, there's money involved. So the more of those boxes any issue checks, the higher in news value it is. And so Julie had to leave. So I'm so sorry technology kind of ate into our time. The next thing I want you to know about the media is not to be afraid of them, because every day reporters have to pitch stories in what are called editorial meetings, and they happen twice a day in every news outlet in the country. In the morning, they're kicking around ideas for stories to put in the noon and the early afternoon shows. In the late afternoon, there's a meeting to determine what goes in the evening coverage. And this happens in print organizations too. And online media is still considered print because you read it to consume it. Okay. So in those meetings, reporters have to pitch ideas for what they want to do. And they have to make a case for why that story should get on the air. And that's where you come in. You're the ones who give them the background information or can provide them with someone they can talk to give their story credibility. Because every single day reporters are pitching story ideas. And they need your help. Imagine how nerve-wracking it would be to go into work every day and you have to make a case for what you want to work on that day and get everybody to buy in. That's why they show up acting crazy sometimes, because it's a tough business, but no 2 days are ever the same. So the way you can help is to look at a news organization that you wish would cover what you're doing. Find out the kinds of stories they cover. And this is you doing your homework. Go to their website. Look and see the kinds of stories they've covered in the past. Follow the different reporters. See who covers stories related to what you do. And then you reach out to that person and say, I saw your story on X, Y, and Z topic. Really liked what you did, because reporters aren't used to getting email like that. In the future, if you're doing a story about this topic, feel free to reach out. Here's my name, here's our organization, here's what we do. Great job. trust me, they'll remember because they don't get correspondence like that. They usually get people telling them they're stupid, or I'm going to slash your tires, or you're an idiot. So if somebody compliments them, they will remember. And then when they're doing a story related to that topic, they have your contact information. So it's really not that difficult to create a relationship with a journalist. The thing is, you contact them when you don't need something from them. Excuse me, because everybody calls them when they need something. Any questions about that? So I'm going to give you a little trick on how to not answer a question you don't want to answer. So if a reporter asks you something that makes no sense or is not related to why they told you they want to talk to you, here's what you say. Wow, I am fully prepared to talk to you about the subject you told me you were coming here to discuss. However, I need to do a little more homework about the question you just asked, because it would be irresponsible of me to just give you an answer off the cuff without having a chance to look at the data that you need. Now, what questions do you have for the topic that you told me you were here to discuss? And now you're done. And if they keep pushing, you just say the same thing. I don't want to give you an answer in the spur of the moment until I can give you the data that will validate that question or your question. Or you can say the following: that's a very interesting question. However, in our experience, A, B, and C, there are two things no one can argue with you about: history and your experience. You can refer to something that's already happened, or you can talk about your experience in the arena that you're in. Nobody can tell you your experience wasn't your experience. Does that help? Okay, so we went 5 minutes over. I'm going to blame the technology gremlins, but I will stay here as long as you like to answer any questions that you have, because I want to make sure that before you leave, you feel you've gotten what you came for and that you feel supported.
Thank you so much, Annetta. If anyone has questions, you're welcome to drop those questions into the chat. I'm going to go back to sharing just a couple of quick reminders as we wrap up, but please continue to drop questions into the chat while we still have a few minutes with Annetta. As always, we will send a link to this recording to you probably tomorrow afternoon, so that for those who weren't able to stay the whole time, or for those of you who are here now and want to share this really excellent training with your team members at your clubs, please feel free to share this. As always, there will be a follow-up survey asking you for your opinion about the experience today. There is no webcast scheduled in September because the Promise Awards are scheduled for September 20th. You've probably seen some messages from WFYC about the Promise Awards. So please mark your calendar and register. We cannot wait to celebrate the Promise Award nominees, finalists, and recipients with you.
Abby?
Yes.
I see one question that Tim had that I want to make sure I address. He asked me about how to dress solid colors, rich colors, jewel tones like gold, burgundy, emerald green, royal blue. Tim, a color like you have on today. So if you're being interviewed, you want to wear a bold color because it just looks better from the stage and on camera, and solids, not prints. I want to make sure I answered that.
Excellent advice. Thank you. So if you have any additional questions, we will stick around. We're going to end the recording here in just a second, but we'll stick around to answer any questions that you have. And as always, you can reach out to us at admin@wfyc.org with any additional questions. So thank you so much for joining us today. Annetta, thank you for sharing your expertise. I am so grateful for you sharing your time today between mind mapping and your sticky note method, and just the reminder that it's okay to keep going. We don't have to tell our audience when we've made a mistake. We can just keep it moving. Your expertise and your reassurance is so helpful, and thank you again for your time today.